Vinland Saga, one of my favorite animes ever. It has an awesome story, awesome action scenes, amazing characters, and the opening is just Yeah, it's really good. Despite the fact it's so good though, it's not very popular. So, for the people that haven't seen it or forgot about it, let me clue you in. The story starts with a Viking named Thors. This man is very good at killing people, like nobody can beat this guy. But one day he realizes that war isn't that fun, so he decides to leave in secret with his wife and daughter to live in Iceland. Here he gets another child called Thorfinn. Thorfinn and his family lived a very peaceful life in Iceland, feeding their sheep, milking their cow. What the fuck, that's one big ass cow. Every night Thorfinn listened to the stories this old dude told him. Stories about how he explored the world and found a mystical land called Vinland. And Thorfinn was very impressed. Everything was cool until one day a random Viking ship appeared. Inside that Viking ship was a guy named Floki, an ex-friend of Thor's. He told him the king wants him to fight again, because his troops got attacked by the English while they were bathing. They got murdered naked. So now Thors is forced to go to war again. And he has to bring people from the village with him to fight. Everyone in the village gets super excited because they have never fought in their whole life and they think war is fun. Stupid! Now Thors knows they're weak as shit and they're all gonna die. So he has a plan to leave them on an island in the middle of their journey and then continue alone. Thorfinn is obviously not allowed to go, cause motherfucker is like what, 4? But he sneaks in on the ship anyway. And the first thing he does once he reveals himself is fucking piss in the sea. Thors is obviously upset at Thorfinn for coming in without permission, so he decides to smack his ass.
Look at him. This troll is alone.
They continue their journey, but then they get stopped by a group of mercenaries, led by a guy named Askeladd. Turns out he was sent by Floki to kill Thors in secret. Since Floki was upset, Thors had left the war all those years ago. Thors easily manages to beat up their whole ship, so Askeladd and him decide to one-on-one in a duel. And if Thors wins, they are allowed to go. And a super epic battle later, Thors wins.
Yes! Hell yeah!
But then Askeladd decides to cheat and he makes his archers shoot arrows at him.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Askeladd does let the rest go though, since he only wanted to kill Thors. But Thorfinn is obviously super upset now, and he decides to secretly go on the ship of Askeladd and leaves everyone behind. Then he promises Askeladd he will kill him and avenge his father no matter what. Askeladd doesn't really care though, and he keeps to do the things he usually does, like plundering a whole damn village. Once Askeladd is sleeping, Thorfinn approaches him ready to kill him. But he ends up not doing it because it's not an honorable way of killing.
One eye open when I'm sleeping.
Thorfinn then learns how to survive on his own by eating leftovers and training himself with a dagger. Once he feels like he's ready to fight, he challenges Askeladd to a duel. Alright Thorfinn, this is your moment. Time to avenge your father. Askeladd tells him that he will give him another chance to duel him if he achieves something special in battle. So now Thorfinn has a goal, and he starts fighting alongside Askeladd and his men, becoming stronger and stronger, until one day he decides to sleep on a tree branch. An old lady and her daughter find him. They let him sleep in a bed, give him food, clean him up, all so he can later burn their village down with Askeladd. They end up plundering more villages, Thorfinn grows up, and eventually they go through a crazy battle where Thorfinn manages to kill a war captain. He brings the captain's head to Askeladd and they do another duel. After all these years of fighting, today is finally the day. I will avenge you, father. Askeladd tells him he lost because he gets distracted by his emotions. Meanwhile, the king decides to invade London. But they can't get through because of this motherfucker, Thorkel. Every time a ship tries to get through, he just throws a damn stick through it. So, to get a reward from the king, Askeladd asks Thorfinn to go kill Thorkel. They have a crazy battle and Thorfinn manages to cut off 2 of his fingers. But then Thorkel beats the living shit out of him, forcing him to escape. Now, for a bit of context, the king has a son called Canute. This son gets taken care of by this goofy looking ass called Ragnar. When Askeladd and his team escaped from Thorkel, Thorkel kidnapped Canute and Ragnar. Askeladd found out about this by a messenger and he decides to save Canute so they could get rewarded for it. They intercept Thorkel and his army and Askeladd makes his men burn the forest around him. Then he makes Thorfinn go in and save the prince. Here he meets Thorkel again, but they can't fight because of the fire. He manages to save Canute and Ragnar and we get a face reveal from the prince. Sis? Oh no, not again, no! On their way to bring back the prince, they need to restock on food, so they rob and murder an entire village. Besides one girl that managed to escape and ended up going to Thorkel and telling them where they are. So now Thorkel is on a hunt for them. During this time, Askeladd also murders Ragnar, because he thinks he's a bad influence for Canute. Eventually, Askeladd and his men find out Thorkel is following them, and this scares a lot of them, which made them go against Askeladd's leadership. He fights some of them, literally kills some of them, until he gets pinned to the ground by his archers. Just when all this is happening, Thorkel arrives and starts a killing spree. Thorkel is about to kill Askeladd when Thorfinn arrives, screaming that only he is allowed to kill him. They start fighting and Thorkel kicks him and breaks his arm. During this fight, we also find out Thorkel used to be a very close friend to Thor's and is actually family of Thorfinn. Despite the odds, Thorfinn manages to beat Thorkel with the help of Askeladd and takes out one of his eyes, which makes Thorkel stop the fight and admit he lost. Meanwhile, Prince Canute was having a whole mental episode about dealing with the death of Ragnar, and now he is a lot more serious and mature. So much so, he wants to kill his father, because he's a corrupt king. Thorkel decides to join them on this. Once they get back at the king's place, the king realizes his son has realized how corrupt he is, so he plans on secretly killing him. Canute saw this coming though, so he made a chick that looked like him roleplay as him, so she could die instead if an attack happened. And well, it did. She's dead. This made people realize the king wants to kill his son. This put pressure on him, which was very good for Canute. Meanwhile, with Bjorn, who the fuck is Bjorn? It's this guy, a very close friend of Askeladd, asks him to murder him. The reason he wants to die like this is because he believes he won't go to Vinland if he doesn't die in combat. After he gets killed by Askeladd, Thorfinn finally gets another duel. Yes, my boy thinks he can win with a broken arm. He got completely destroyed and humiliated and obviously lost the duel. Wait, I forgot. After that, Askeladd told him his life story. He lived with his mom, who was very poor and sick. His father had left her years ago. Because he was always dirty, they called him Askeladd, which means covered in ashes. One day, his mom tried to talk with his father, asking for help. And his father didn't even recognize her and was about to kill her. But Askeladd grabbed the sword and came to save her. This impressed his dad. And his dad was like, "Are you my son?" And he was like, "Yes." So he ended up living with him for a while, until one day he was like, "Nah, this guy's an asshole," and he murdered him. The next day, Thorfinn is completely destroyed physically and mentally. He ends up fainting on the floor, and when he wakes up, he gets annoyed by these random guys, so he beats them up, and this gets him arrested. In the cell, the old dude that used to tell him stories at night visited him. This guy. You remember him? He's old now. The old dude tells Thorfinn that he missed him and that he wants him to come home. Meanwhile, the king plans on attacking Gales, the place where Askeladd grew up. This triggered him and he decides to threaten the king, revealing his real name to him.
I am Lucius Artorius Castus.
Okay. Apparently, this name makes him the true successor to the throne. He fucking kills the king and starts murdering a bunch of soldiers. Meanwhile, the old dude frees Thorfinn from his cell and he almost goes home with him, but Thorfinn changes his mind and runs towards Askeladd, where he sees him fighting a bunch of people, when suddenly he gets stabbed by Canute. Askeladd knew he was gonna get stabbed by Canute. It was all part of his plan of letting Canute take over the throne. He basically sacrificed himself. Thorfinn is super upset because now Askeladd is gonna die without him having killed him, and Askeladd asks him, "What are you gonna do with your life now? Don't stay in such a boring place like this. Go further than your father went, because that's your true warrior journey." After hearing that, Thorfinn gets super emotional and tries to kill Canute, but gets captured and taken away. And while he gets pulled back, he drops his dagger, symbolizing he drops his revenge path and starts a new chapter in his life. The end. Really can't wait for season 2, people. If you guys like this video, I might even make a recap of it once it's out. So let me know in the comments what you thought, and I'll see you guys in the next video.